As we get closer to the 2024 presidential election, the polling numbers for Joe Biden continue to get worse. What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American, back in with a new video. And today, it is time that we talk about the 2024 presidential election. Because everyone, we are getting more and more polling data that indicates that President Biden is in a very bad situation for re-election. But it's getting so bad that even the media is having to admit to everybody, oh yeah, what everybody was saying for 5 months or maybe even a year now. But turns out it's real. I mean, look at this title from Politico. The polls keep getting worse for Biden. Yeah, this is right on the front page of Politico today. So I'm going to look into what the article says. We're going to see what the numbers are, all of that. But first, before we continue with today's video, I hope you enjoy these type of videos. If you do, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Guys, just for $1 a month, you can join Real American. This is the best way to support the daily content that we all know and love. So I hope and recommend you join the channel today. Alright, everybody. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying that's a guarantee that Biden loses next year. But when even Politico is saying, yeah, the polling numbers get worse for Biden the more we look at them. I mean, they're even saying that this isn't a fluke. This is a full-blown trend, which many of us have been saying for a year or so. When you have a year's worth of polling that indicates the same trend, Trump is doing better with virtually every key Democrat group. You can't ignore it any longer. It is real. So let's get into it. President Joe Biden's poll numbers keep getting worse. That's an understatement. November started with New York Times/Siena College polls showing Trump ahead in 4 of the 6 swing states, but more indicators of Biden's electoral peril soon followed. This alone is crazy, because the New York Times, they never had Trump up in these states. They never had him up by even a point in many of these places. They have him up by several points, like 4 or 5 percentage points in Pennsylvania and Michigan. They had him down by like 12, I think it was. But even they started to indicate, or at least admit, that, hey, Trump is doing better in the swing states that he shouldn't be doing this much better in. The president's standing in head-to-head matchups with Trump is failing, or falling. Among the latest surveys this month from 13 separate pollsters, Biden's position is worse than their previous polls in all but 2 of them. Yeah. In every single poll, except 2. That's 11 out of 13. Biden's poll numbers have gotten worse. And look at this. Fox News, a 3-point decrease. NBC News, 2 points. Emerson College, 2. Quinnipiac, 1. The one big outlier is Rasmussen, but Rasmussen, I trust them. You know, they're not the best pollsters, I would say. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying that they're definitely a pollster that they could get some wacky numbers. They usually have, but they tend to be a bit more accurate when we get closer to the elections. They do. But they do have some wacky swings sometimes. 1 month, Biden's approval collapses 30 points. Then it goes up 25 the next month. It's all over the place. But except for that one, look at the trend. Biden keeps going down and down and down. And not just Trump staying the same. In these same polls, Trump's vote share is going up. So it's not just a one-off, it's a trend. This entire month, it's been a disaster for Biden. And while polls suggest most of the movement comes from voters abandoning Biden, who might become undecided but not swing to supporting Trump, the Republican has also started to gain steam. Trump's vote share in the national polling average is higher now than at any point in the past year, And not only that, according to RCP, Trump is polling the highest he's ever polled. He's at like 47.2% on RCP. He was never at that. Never in 2012, or not 2012, 2016 or 2020. The highest was like 46%. So even Trump's share is the highest ever, not just this year. In almost 8 years worth of polling, Trump is polling the best he's ever done as just his vote share alone. Margin-wise, he's killing Biden compared to the polling from 3 years ago that had him losing the national popular vote by 8 or whatever it was. The state-level data are just as striking. In addition to those New York Times polls, within the last week and a half, other surveys have shown Trump ahead by 8 points in Arizona and 5 points in Michigan, which I still have my doubts if that's even possible. But even Politico is saying, yeah, this is a big problem for Biden. I don't know. Biden's recent slide and his political predicament some 11 months before Election Day represent a confluence of slippage with reliable Democratic constituencies like young voters. The outbreak of the war in the Middle East and the rise of independent third-party candidates could siphon votes from both Biden and Trump. But, it's going to hurt Biden more. His base is showing much more crackage than Trump. It just is. I mean, the stuff in the Middle East, that alone is dividing the Democrats into halves. Half of them are pro-Israel, the other half not so much. The Republican Party, they're generally all agree they back Israel, just to what degree. But either way, these numbers are just terrible, especially for an incumbent president. Even Obama, when his approval rating was not that good, he was still polling, decent comparatively. He was still beating Romney. That's not the case right now. This week's NBC News poll had a stunning result. Trump led Biden among voters younger than 35, 46% to 42%, which everybody read off as just a fluke, as it's just bad polling data. Even though that was well within the high margin of error for such a small subgroup, other polls also show a close race with what has been a reliable Democratic constituency. Biden had only single-digit leads among young voters 18 to 34 in polls this month from Morning Consult, Fox News, and Quinnipiac. Trump led Biden in all 4 polls among old voters. Yeah. So, every poll is showing Trump is doing better with young voters. Yes, it's because Biden's slipping with them, but he's still getting a larger vote share in most of them. Only a few polls show Biden with a lead among young voters that approaches his 2020 margins, but they are the exception, not the rule. And those were, I believe, from a couple months ago. In the past month, his numbers have just been cut in half in some of these polls. That's prompted debate over whether Trump is really making the deep inroads with younger voters the polling suggests, or if those numbers are an artifact of some kind of polling bias. One popular theory speculates that liberal younger voters who are unenthusiastic about Biden and his party, over his administration's support for Israel and a war with Hamas, for example, aren't participating in polls right now, even if many of them will vote for him next November. Oh, bull crap. Listen, I'm sorry, that is idiotic. Okay, that might explain a 5-point shift, fine. That doesn't explain a 15 to 20 point shift we're seeing. Again, it could happen. Okay, I can understand a couple points here and there. But that doesn't explain why it's every single poll that has him doing 15, 20 points better or whatever it is. Not just 1 or 2 or a couple points here and there. It is a huge swing. But Biden, the oldest president in history, has never polled well with younger voters. And telephone polls, of the four mentioned above, Old Blood Morning Consult, were conducted over the phone, are a difficult way to reach younger voters. But every poll that uses even texting, internet, whatever, they're showing the same deal. Biden's sagging margins against Trump are one thing, but there are two other trend lines under the hood of these polls that spell trouble for the incumbent. First is approval. Already historically low for president at this point in his first term, has been ticking down. Biden's approval rating dipped down to 38% in 538's average earlier this month, the lowest since July of 2022. Similarly, when Biden hit 40% in RCP's average this month, it was his lowest reading since August of 2022. So usually, in the third and fourth year of presidency, the approval kind of improves, generally speaking, especially for a first-term president. But Biden's is just going down. It's not, stagnating or slightly going up. It's just flat out going down to historically low numbers. Meanwhile, Trump's numbers are rising, dating back a little more than a year. Real Clear Politics average has had Trump hovering between 42 and 46% in a head-to-head matchup with Biden. Not only did Trump break 46% for the first time earlier this month, this week he inched above 47%, about equal to his vote share in the 2020 election. And this is the big deal. I don't think Politico is going to mention it, but like I said, Trump never polled above 46%. I'm talking about polled. I think 45 is absolute best. He's averaging 47%. The best he's ever done. Not just the past year, the past 8 years. Most of the polls that show Trump with a majority of the vote don't include undecided voters, which, that's a fair point. A questionable decision this far out from Election Day, especially in a hypothetical race between two candidates so disliked by the electorate. But even polls that do report undecided voters show Trump ticking up, like the Fox News survey, which had Trump with a slight lead over Biden, 50% to 46%. Again, you could make the argument that the undecideds, there should be more. Okay. But even then, it seems like the undecideds, they're just breaking for Trump. And you just keep looking at this, and it's a disaster. Everything is showing Biden's numbers are imploding. And I'm starting to wonder if Trump is inevitable. That no matter what you do against this guy, he's going to win next year. I'm not saying he will, but I'm starting to wonder if that's the case. You throw everything at Trump. Possible conviction, indictments, BS. His numbers go up. While Biden potentially just destroyed the Democrat base with his handling of the war in the Middle East. I don't know what to say. But these numbers are a complete and total disaster for President Biden. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the social media accounts in the description down below, and of course, join the channel today. Thank you so much. Godspeed to all of you.